If the situation ain't right, USC's Caleb Williams may not be in the class of 2024. May go back to school, keep getting that NIL bread, keep living that LA life for another year, and come out in 2025. Here's Caleb Williams' response to that.
Caleb, in the GQ article your dad mentioned about how the potential number one pick in the NFL, that might factor into your decision whether to go pro or not. How big of a factor is that in your decision?
We got Stanford this week, and that's what I'll be worrying about. Game's 3 days out, and so it's the main focus, main goal is to go out there and win versus Stanford, and not let my teammates down out there on Saturday. So that would be the answer to all of those questions towards the NFL. I have 10 more games left here that I'm, given, and then we're working for the last 3. So that'll be the answer for all of that. But next question, please.
Next question, please. How polite.
Please.
Dude is so cool, is always completely in and under control. Completely in and under control, on the field, off the field. He evaded those questions as though they were a helpless pass rusher. With all due respect to Deion Sanders, Caleb Williams is the story of college football, and for that matter, maybe the story of NFL football. We just talked about the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. If you're telling me the next Patrick Mahomes may or may not enter the NFL draft next year, that is a dominant story at both levels of American football, or the highest levels of American football. A couple of things on Caleb Williams. By the way, did you happen to have a chance to read the entire GQ article? Not yet?
Of course.
Yes? No? Not yet?
What
of course?
What
okay.
else? What else? Yes, of course I did.
Sorry. Didn't mean to insult you.
What else I got to do?
So, right. So, I think you would agree that certain people say, oh, I was made for this. He was literally made for this. It reminds me of that line in 300. We do what we were born to do, what we were bred to do, what we were made to do. That's Caleb Williams when it comes to playing quarterback, okay? This dude's story is incredible. He's already wise beyond his years. That's how you get Caleb's wisdom in your feed. He's wise beyond his years. I mentioned how in control and under control he is. He's robo QB, but not robotic. He's perfect in every way. I mean, he's already a runway model, for crying out loud. He's giving Jalen Hurts a run for his money. And he just says and does all the right things at all times. He was also born at the right time. Because I would have never said before Caleb Williams, Michael, stay in school. Because before, telling somebody to stay in school meant playing for free. Even though they still don't get what they should at the college level, it would mean eschewing NFL millions to play for pride and play for your university and yada, yada, yada. It's like, okay, no. My man is getting paid while at USC. And instead of it being like, oh, don't go to the NFL until you're ready, Caleb Williams has got it so he doesn't have to go to the NFL until he's good and damn ready or until he feels like it. Because he can stay at USC, win a second Heisman Trophy, compete for a national championship, maybe, questions about the defense, could come back next year and win a third Heisman Trophy, be the greatest college football player of all time, hands down, maybe win another championship, continue to have LA eating out of the palm of his hand. He's in the biggest market in the country, the second biggest market in the country. Or he could pull a John Elway or Eli Manning when he goes to the NFL. Like, he can literally do whatever he wants and do no wrong. This is so fascinating to me. He can't win for lose. Oh, that's the wrong phrase. I'm sorry. He wins either way is what I'm trying to say. If he stays, he wins. If he goes and determines where he wants to go, he wins because he could pull it off. Elway and Eli Manning were athletic and NFL royalty. So could decide, hey, I'm not playing for the Baltimore Colts. I'm not playing for the San Diego Chargers. Caleb Williams could pull that if it's the Cardinals, who I'll come back to in a minute, but I'll stop ball hogging and I'll pass it to you, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, listen, I love this. I love what you're saying about Caleb Williams. And one thing I didn't hear him say, you're right to say he evaded the question like a pass rush. He didn't say, oh, my dad says a lot of things and, that's not how I feel. It's my father. It's not my feeling. He didn't say any of that. He just said, hey, I got a game against Stanford coming up. So there's no doubt that it's crossed his mind. And if that's in play for Caleb Williams and other people like him, here's the problem. There aren't many people like him who have all the leverage that you're
Right.
talking about, who play the
Right.
most important
Leverage.
position.
That's the
Who,
word.
you know,
Yep.
all of these things. But I'll say he's out. I think he'll leave.
Are you
I don't think he'll
sure?
go back. Yeah. Yes.
He has as much incentive to stay as he does to go.
No, he doesn't. You know why he doesn't? Because you got to be in the moment. Here's your moment. Your moment. You already won the Heisman Trophy. You've already been the quarterback at USC. You're already in position to be the number one pick. Like, there's nothing you can build on in 2024. You're going to win another Heisman? Okay, great. Heisman's not what it used to be. It's still prestigious, not as prestigious as it used to be. And, you know, one thing you could do, you could go back in 24 and jeopardize your draft position either by injury or performance. So this is the time. This is your time. And you can still get what you want. You mentioned, I'm so glad you mentioned John Elway and Eli Manning. So they came out, they had teams that wanted to pick them, and they both said no. You know what he could do? He could come out, and the Arizona Cardinals could be sitting there, and he could say no to the Arizona Cardinals or anybody else he doesn't want to go to. So he still has power, even if he comes out this year. He's going to be the number one pick, whether it's for the Cardinals or some bad team or the team that he eventually winds up at. Like, he's going to be the number one player, is what I'm saying, no matter where he is. And he's going to wind up where he wants to be. So why are you going back?
So, no, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that.
He already told us, too. He said, I got 10 more games. Thank you. Thanks for keeping it above.
Well,
you got 10 more games. You know
well,
that.
because he hasn't made a decision. But I don't think this is I don't think this is talk for talk's sake, because here's what he's already pushing the bins. You talk about all the things he's already doing. He's already pushing a bins, okay? He's already got money. So he may just like it. Shit, Matt Leinart stayed there and took a ballroom dancing class because he felt like it. Like, if you ain't been to USC and you don't live in LA, you may not, and I know you understand, I'm talking about the people out at home. Yeah, you may not understand what a big deal USC football is in LA and what a big deal it is to be a star in that city. So he may decide to stay just because he wants to, Charles Robinson. What am I missing here?
I'm going crazy off camera. They're like they got to shoehorn me in because I'm like, the point is getting missed here.
What's that?
All right, this is not from my lips. I will give you a message from a general manager. This morning, we talked about Caleb Williams, and I asked him at length multiple questions about what Caleb's father had said. And the general manager was really simple. And the message, first and foremost, was people who say money doesn't matter usually have it. Okay, and
Correct.
We all say, well, geez, he has it. Oh, right, he has it. And I've been guilty here. I've said he's on Wendy's commercials. He's on the Heisman House commercials. He could probably do a Rolex deal next year, all these different things. But here's the thing. As this general manager said to me, he waits one more year, and that means two things. Number one, that's 1 year of risk that he is now incurring, additional risk. And you can say, well, you can get a contract or whatever. He can get an insurance contract. That he's like, that's great, but you can't insure him to the point of knowing that, hey, he would have made $500 million worth, during his career. He's like, there's limitations to that kind of an insurance policy. And they said, look, number two, and this is most important, if he is the elite player we believe he is, if he is Patrick Mahomes, if he is Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, one of these guys, he's getting to free agency 1 year later and effectively cutting off 1 year from the end of his career. Well, he said, you know what Caleb Williams might be making in 2038? His salary might be $70 million the last year of his career. Well, he could be cutting off that last year by getting to free agency 1 year later. So you could say, hey, he gets 20 million and 10, 15, 20 million in NIL now, or maybe $70 million later. But the thing that probably makes those two easier to dice up is the extra risk he takes at the front versus the end.
And that's very fair. Those are all reasons for him to leave. And logic would say leave. But this dude, from what I gather, definitely seems to march to his own drummer and forge his own path. And so while there is risk, he's that rare guy who could take that risk and live to tell about it. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Andrew Luck, we're talking about Stanford, they play Stanford, didn't Andrew Luck go through his senior, didn't he stay his senior year? We talked about Eli Manning stayed his senior year. Like,
I mean,
there's precedence for guys.
Herbert stayed
Right,
one more year than he had to.
There's precedence for guys that were identified as underclassmen who stayed as seniors and lived to tell about it when they weren't getting paid. So we'll see. But here's my question about the general manager part, about the Cardinals part of it all, specifically, Charles, the Cardinals part. And maybe I'm giving him too much credit, because they're saying all the right things about Kyler Murray. He's obviously locked up long term. And we've seen the previous general manager draft Kyler Murray a year after they had drafted Josh Rosen. So there's precedent within that very organization to take another quarterback and pull the plug on the previous one. I wonder, is this the Cardinals positioning themselves for the most precious of number one picks when there's a generational, I know we throw that around a lot, generational talent that they can maybe auction off? Or are they serious about tanking for this guy in particular?
Well, I think when they say what they say about Kyler, okay, what you're doing is you're covering all your bases in terms of potential outcomes. Number one,
if he goes back to school.
Number one, if he goes back to school, right? Okay, so then he's not there to draft, right? Number two, what if you don't end up with the first pick? Like, we're all just assuming immediately that they end up with the first pick in the draft. We don't know for sure that they're going to end up with the first pick. But they may fail at that too.
Right. Look at ask the Texans. Right? Ask the Texans.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right.
We've seen Lovey blow that plan up. Okay, so so that there's number two. They may not end up with that number one overall pick. And then really, let's say you do. If they do end up with the number one overall pick, you're going to have a player you have to move. So you don't want to spend all this time beating the hell out of an asset that you then have to deal later, right? What do you want to do? You want to be like, oh, no, it's low mileage, man. It's low mileage. The tires are great. We've never had any issues with it. If you check the vehicle history, there are no accidents. Like, we've never spilled anything in the car. Like, you say everything you can. And then you just explain, we just wanted something a little different. We had a baby, so now it's time to sell the sports car so that we can get the bigger SUV. Right? That's how you explain it. And the buyer's like, oh, yeah, you're right.
That makes sense.
My lifestyle. Yeah, exactly. and another thing, by the way, that the GM told me this morning when we were talking about Caleb Williams, we get into the Kyler Murray conversation. I said, if this all goes down, let's say Kyler comes back and shows that the knee's healthy and he is, what he was before, will there be a market for him? And he was unequivocal. He's like, there will be teams that will line up. Now, he was like, some won't necessarily like the fit from a person standpoint. Like, they'll do the deep dive on, what's he like, what's his personality like, what's his leadership, what are his leadership traits like? Maybe that doesn't fit us. But he said from a talent standpoint, there's no question that a number of teams out there will look at his talent and say, this guy's exponentially better than what we can get our hands on right now. And the juice is worth the squeeze in terms of our potential assets. And by the way, just to kind of tease people a little bit here, look at the roster of the Minnesota Vikings offense next year. Okay?
Ooh.
Just look at the roster of the Vikings offense next year. Very attractive team.
That'd be unfair.
Very attractive team for
if he's going to pick his team, yes.
Now, yeah.
Oh, you talking about Kyler or Caleb? Which one are you talking about?
No. I'm talking about Kyler.
Okay.
Like, if you're going to look at an offense of a team next year and you want to put a veteran in the middle of it, imagine Kevin O'Connell, the head coach there, going, okay, now I'm going from Kirk Cousins and how I run the offense with Kirk Cousins, but now I put in Kyler Murray with Justin Jefferson, with Addison, with TJ Hawkinson, with an offensive line that's continued to come together. Woohoo!
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.